It's going to be short. It's going to be direct. It's going to make a lot of sense. And yeah, I have fun getting into it without wasting time. So, big is I have so far. As you can see, I have a Monaco editor by the right side, which is here. I have the design structure. Remember this, right? And the whole Figma feature, the parser, the UI, AST, generator, then the correction, the error correction algorithm, and then the response. So not everything here has been done, truth be told, but a lot of things have been implemented to a very large extent. Excuse me. And that means I that means I've done some of the things that are needed. So, for instance, the first thing is if I go back to this, you see we have the design structure. Remember when I started with the first video on this series that I said, if you want to build this, I know you are going to have the nodes, which was expecting the Figma file nodes. So, I kind of have like the complete node here, which if I'm to show you guys, you can see is about uh almost 2,000 lines of code, which is understandable, right? There are a lot of things to it which you need to walk through to understand, to get and to fetch certain things. So what I've done here is just basically a simple implementation. It's not perfect, but let me just walk you guys through what I've done. So now that you've seen the UI, this is what the UI looks like. The preview is supposed to show you in real time what the mobile implementation should be. But that requires me to probably integrate like an online to like maybe Stack Blitz. I think I'm saying the right name, or something similar, right? Or something like what's the name of this other one I like to use a lot? I can't remember right now, but something like that that you can just plug and play. You install the dependency, configure it, kind of like how you can use Monaco, right? All of them have their plugins you can use, so there are options I can use for that also. So those are options. I'm not saying it's perfect, but those are very good options that you can use. So far so good. That was the decision, right? Remember, I said I was going to build this. Well, over time, we've built over other things. We built a skill directory that we can use, that we can convert into an actual. Oh yeah, quick update. Let me give you guys the updates. I did that also. Um, I did that also. Let me show you guys that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I showed you guys that also, but I think I did. But I created that into like an actual skill. Okay, yeah, I think I shared it on the last. Yeah, this is it. The native, which I shared on the last episode of this video. So now, if I want to build, like I said, just new implementation, it's not perfect. Then what I do is like I showed you is working the previous video that I did. It's called I think day five. Yeah, the day five of how to create a skill, okay, UI library that you build, or for any project you build. Probably is the library, so probably is a framework, whatever it is. How you can explain how you can do that in like a 20 something minutes video. So it's like a total breakdown. So you can use that to kind of understand what to expect from it. So that's a very cool way. It's the things I did. And now let me show you guys how this looks like. So remember the last time I said from the diagram, remember the diagram I showed you guys last time? Yeah, we talked about how to build the UI builder for this. I said you need the API access, the Figma access, which was established on the first day, the intro video to this implementation. Then you have like the Figma feature, the Figma parser, the UI AST, which is the abstract interest array, and the generator itself. But then I modified this slightly that after doing all the fetching and the passing and then taking it through the AST, which is where you do all the whole mapping and stuff, right? Yeah, which is just like it's basically like writing a compiler, but you're compiling a file from one format to another format and then getting it to work. So the next thing was to generate the result. But in this case, I said let's tweak it a bit. Rather than just generating the result straight away based on just the decisive, or let me say the structured mapping that we've already configured, why not take it through an error correction algorithm whereby we now need a form of like AI understanding what to do. And that was why we needed the skill, right? And that was why not that we needed it at that point. I didn't know we were going to need it, but like I said, while I was just thinking about, I was working on something else at the end. Oh wow! I was like, oh yes, don't just give me the idea. Let me be sincere. The Lord just gave me the idea. I was like, oh cool. let me do this. And so I went along that line and I just picked that particular thing and I researched on it and it was going to make sense. So I made this whole diagram based on that approach and saying that, yeah, we create a version for every page of the pass node and then we pass it through an error correction algorithm, kind of like a for loop, then we get the response. So the error correction algorithm can only work if you have a very detailed rules of how the library works. That's Radix native UI library, which I think I've shared. But if you're watching this for the first time, this is the library, Radix native UI library. It's a native port of the popular Radix themes implementation. That's basically what it is. So that's what it is. So this week we have 30 plus download this week, which is cool. So that means last week we had a lot, this week it has increased. So if you've not downloaded that, you have to download this. And 200 downloads now since it was released just today. That is very, very interesting. The next thing is what next? What next? What next? Yeah, so that was where the skill. So the skill was needed for that approach. So now that we created the skill, like I showed you guys here, now we can talk about this. So this is not complete. As you can see, this was generated from this. Now this was the design structure because, like I said, it's going to get the details of the entire Figma file. So I borrowed this Figma file from someone. It's not really mine, but this is what we're supposed to do. So I got it from someone, so I could use it to test this. I don't have an existing Figma file, but I got this from someone and decided to use this as a test. So, interestingly, it was able to get some things. It's not complete yet. It was just a test run. And so, one first thing I noticed was I was able to get the gateway vault, which is part of the actual first page. And then it generated a bunch of text with card that was not really necessary, but I believe its use of being able to use the components from the library is what I'm proud of, basically. And that is why it shows me that, okay, what we are embarking on can work. Now, it's going to take a lot of complete this, but you can be sure that if you put much more effort, if I put much more effort to this, I can get something out of it. So this is a very good run. So when I tested it, I saw that okay, this works. So I decided to like record this video. You can even see the name of this is the Gateway Vault, which is the name of the app itself, or let me say the design or the app that was designed was made for. And so he got that created as a function, and then it's quite nice. I'm not saying it's perfect, but then let me just walk you guys through the package back to the design that we had originally that we are trying to follow. So you can see we have something called the code generator, which is so everything is more like a mono repo because everything wants to. I don't want to deal with multiple repositories. It's easier working in the memory repo these days. And so I have a code generator here. I have a component mapper, I have a Figt and also a Figma parser. And also the Figma client, basically, I think the name is quite explanatory. It's what passes the whole. So all these I have issues with the monorepo configurations and stuff, so it's not perfect. But what I'm trying to say is, we have the Figma client that fetches from Figma. We have all of these things are just very basic stuff, just a package that can be modified on its own separately from the actual implementation that we are using, and everything works. So yeah, so the parser itself is where most of not most of the work, but a lot of the work is done. So a lot of the work is done here from the parser, whereby you're passing the Figma color to an actual UI color. Like I said the other day, I think in the first video, I think the day one of this series, that first thing you want to do is you want to get all the informations that you need. First thing is you want the color system or the color declarations. So you get all the color definitions, declaration and definition, and define it into what you are trying to create, which is the Radix native UI library. So we work with the color. So as you can see here, the first thing was pass Figma color to UI color, which is what we want to do. So the next thing is now to pass the nodes. Remember we talked about the nodes the last time. Let me go back to it. Talking about nodes, a lot of expecting the Figma file node, which is what we want. So we get the node and we walk through all the nodes. We pass the node by node visible, blah blah blah. Configure. We check for stuff. Check if it's not hidden or locked. If it's a locked node, for now, because yeah, if you script through it, then you do all the other things. So it requires me to be able to understand how it works. So this is an example of how it works. Like I said, it's about 2,000 lines of code. This is actually very small. There, we can be much more like lines of code for an actual documentation. But if you look at all this and you compare it to the design I have, I'm not sure if everything has even It was even part of this result I got in terms of like all the pages, because the pages for the one I'm using to test is about 16, 18 pages. So it's a lot of pages. I'm not showing everything because it's not mine, like I said. But yeah, once I get permission to use one, I'll probably make another video to show you guys. So I'll be making videos for updates. So basically, you guys will see how it goes. So the next thing is you have the parser still talks about the nodes, right? You're passing the node from Figma. So you have things like frame. So what you do is you pass the frame from and get the depth of the frame, so you know what children it has, and then now you can configurably define the children to actually map it into the UI, and then decide the components to use, decide how you are going to flex all of them. But you still need other things like the properties to know if the children are text nodes, and then define the properties of that text. Is it aligned right? Is it aligned left? Is it in cliques? Is it is a lot of work. Basically, you need to actually understand how UI works. Even if you don't understand how UI works, you need to give it to an AI that understands, and then generatively give you what you want. We've done that part here, but I wanted to just do something that we can work with. So if you go to things like, as you can see, we have the frame, we have the group, we have the text. Remember, they are frames, they are group, they are text, rectangles, component, and instances in actual Figma files. You can't deny they are there. So the first thing you have here is you have the frame, the group, the text, the rectangle, component, instance. All of these things exist and they work perfectly well. So next thing I wanted to do here was get the pass frame. So the pass frame, right? So you get all of these things, the no layout style. You use all of this. All of this exists in the UI. Like so, if you guys have you guys the code base, right? So just to, copy labs, look for this is the skills. We have not pushed this to npm yet. So once we are, let's just 2 days ago, like I said. So when you just go to Radix native UI and slowly, like it lags, unnecessarily lags. I don't know if it's just from my end, but it's so annoying. So we have Radix native UI, and one more thing, I added another component to this guy for stuff. Yeah, this is useful. I think just a baby future, everything is defined and it will work. That is going to be very, very good. Jump on it also. It's if you can create stuff, stay out. I have issues. I just don't write the issues yet. I think I'll start doing that now. Whatever issue I face, I write that. But there are already 182 branches by myself alone, 196 commit, and it's growing every single time. The reason it has not been more is because I've been pending a lot of other components I don't want to add and features I don't want to add, because I'm trying to limit what I can take at the same time and implement at once. But if you want to contribute, like I said, feel free to join, feel free to take it up and use it as well. So this is interesting. If you want to check whatever is happening from here, you can just go to this, make use of it. So back to the example and the explanation library itself. And then what happens is all of these things that I just follow. Remember, we have, if it's solid, uh, we have the color state, UI native. Let me say native UI. So we have one, the color, the solid, the source for the how to have the explanatory now. Kind of get like something like, let me show you the actual implementation, right? So it's not too far fetched in Radix. It's like completely one-to-one mapping. But you can, if you use your Radix code base, if you have one, just copy this stuff, install this library, paste it into it, like create a mobile template using Expo, paste that library into your mobile app and see it work the same way, look the same way. You tried it, just try it out. It might be slight differences because it's mobile, but if you copy the mobile responsive part into that particular app, you get the same thing. So it's easy to use that. But in order not to waste time for this video, just I don't want it to be too long. Like I said, I don't want to waste time in this video. So the first thing is that we have. So let me show you this works with the button component. So if I go to the button, you see this is the soft. This is how it looks like. Okay, so basically this is the classic. We don't have classic, soft, surface, outline, just the transparent one. I think that is everybody knows how that is. So it's just a transparent button. That's what the ghost is. So anywhere you see the ghost, so we have a defined states, components that are kind of pressable or even not even pressable alone, components that define different color states. All of them maintain the same uh, particular color state, right? So in that case, so if color is solid, we define what happens to it. So all of these things are, yeah, you see, we pass the color, we do the opacity stuff just in case, but we don't really need. There are still some things I want to remove, but for now, this just works. Case. So I'm going to basically remove some other things. So you have things like absolute bounding box, which are part of this. Absolute bounding box, yeah, like this. Trust me, I don't really understand this perfectly yet, but so I can't explain it right now. But I mean, not that I don't understand what it means. I mean, I don't understand how it comes in play with design. I needed to check and compare. I've we have compare map to one another, right? So we have different components that we can use. So we don't need to create stuff for some of them. Like the components, an actual button, use an actual button component. When you see things like test, use an actual test component, a test component. We have when you see things like stack, use a stack component. I we actually have a stack component that works for that. So that if you are working with our library, rather than you needing to create stuff, just create a stack component. If the stack is horizontal, use an H stack component, stack position, orientation, horizontal. Define whatever it is, just to make it as simple as possible. Like I said, I'm trying to create this so that it's easy for AIs to understand that okay, if I see this kind of node, this should be the best approach. I'm not having to guess it and then having to make changes and compromise. One thing I've noticed is that the best UI that we have these days are just act, especially since Figma came out. Most people don't really know how to design stuff. I'm not here to lash anybody. What I mean is you don't define code in structured ways like before again, not because it is bad, but because it costs you time to make changes. If you build your UI in a way that is hierarchical and has a defined layout, you can make changes. When Flex came out, one of the things it gave developers and gave people that were so good with UI and front end implementations, or let me say UI generally, was to be able to make responsive designs that won't cost you much without using things like absolutes, without using things like what was the name of this float. That people like that was horrendous in those days. That any little change in your layout, it breaks. You want to accommodate different changes, especially now we have different screen sizes. Best thing to do is to create a particular component that can fit into that particular scale. It can grow, it can shrink. If you want it to remain fixed, define the fix. If you want it to grow, tell it to grow. That's one of the reasons why Flex is one of the best things that's happened to styling in any time possible, not just in 21st century. And I can see that anywhere. So I believe that is true. So that's one of the things that we've not had for a while. People tend to just copy from Figma and post and paste. Yeah, it's good, but when you make the design change and you want to make changes, it takes time, it delays. And right now that you even have AI tools also, yeah, it's possible. But when you want to make changes also, AI can tend to hallucinate and make changes. Not all AI are good with AI. Now you with UI, and you can tend to understand why most LLM struggle with UI. Only few of them have gotten what UI, how UI can work. I think Claude is one of them. Codex is not that good with UI. Gemini is an extent good with UI, but not good with layouts. It's good with just the design color and just like the hero section. Every other thing lacks. Every other thing, they can't think out of the box because there's no way to understand how these things work. So, like I always say, they do not understand how layout works. If an LLM truly understands how layout works in whether web design or mobile design, they will create very, very good, in fact, easily. Because when we started all of this LLM stuff, we'll be like, oh, web developers are out of business. Yes, because we tend to see that they can one shot what it exists, but tell them to create something quite innovative. Tell them to think, also, okay, I want this approach. They can't do it. I've tested lots of them. They tend to struggle. They struggle by not being able to replicate it exactly the way it is. And it's not because they are not good enough. I'm trying to solve that problem with this. So this is what I have. So in order not to like deviate, not rant too much. The next thing I have like 5 minutes and I'm going to end this. The next thing is we have the layout engine. So the layout engine is let me show you guys one more thing. Okay, this doesn't have much again. So let me go to the layout engine. The layout engine has something kind of cool. It's just basically the layout. So everything that I said just now, that one of the reasons why LLMs do not understand layout is because they do not understand how layout works. It's just that simple. The reason why they don't understand layout and composition is because they don't understand layout works in web, in mobile, CSS, HTML. HTML makes it easy for you to build. So with kind of approach, children parents relationship, it should be easy for you to build. But when you put CSS in the mix, why? Because you have the flexibility to overdo things, which is what LLM does, and they don't understand it most times. So it's easy to make mistakes, easy to go overboard, which is why this is trying to fix it. So if you have a component kind of implementation, like having things like this with props, you have a predefined props. AI can work with that predefined prop and not make mistakes. That's the idea. So it's a very simple fix, but most people don't consider it. UI is simple, but it's not really simple. As someone that do both UI and back end and a little bit of system programming, I understand the complexity of all of those things. It can be tricky to work with. So that aside, so we have the map layout direction, which is just to tell you how the layout works, right? So if you have this, we know, and if not, it's columns, and then map the primary axis, which is the alignment, which is like the flex aligned concept. So then you have different one. Then the spacing. So the spacing, we have spacing defined. So if you want to understand how this works, this is initial documentation for Radix, and it tells you everything you need to know about. Especially in the everything about the color system, it tells you everything about the components, the decisions we took, the radius, the sizing, some other important like it tells you how those things work. The styling guide exactly, especially tells you all of those things, keeping style, component, and all of those things in terms of like sizing, dark mode, animations, even haptics. We give you out haptics by default. There are a lot of benefits using this library. Trust me. Like I don't bother about certain things when I use it to build nowadays. I just focus on what do I want to build. I don't think about configurations. I don't think about colors. There's an inbuilt color system that works for me. That's one of the reasons why I love Radix so much. It works. I don't think of colors. Colors is one of the most underrated feature in web development or in any UI development. People feel like it's just uh, understanding the properties. No, it is colors. When you start working in a very large code base, you understand that color can cheat your UI so bad that you feel like, okay, what color do we use right now? I don't know. Maybe it's because I pay attention to details, but colors is one of those things I can't get by. I decide my colors first of all, and you can make mistake with color because you have shades, you have gradients, you have different scales. Yeah, a lot of things that can go wrong with colors. I don't want to waste time on this. 3 more minutes, then I'm done. So one of the things I'm talking about is so we have the normal spacing. So we normalize the spacing, normalize the padding, almost literally everything we have from the guide and how stuff work, even the API references, which you can see color helpers, the hooks, and everything we have. Yeah, so how we have custom radios and all of those things. So stuff like how you can define your own custom stuff, so you can go through that copylabs.mintify.com, and we have things like optimize layout, also process layout. Those are just helper functions that you can use. So the last thing that I have here is the shared library, which doesn't really concern you guys much. It's just for me to use across the entire work monorepo. So that's basically so. But you can see what we have: the parser, the clients, the component mapper, which is extremely important. Now, this one I didn't talk about, but you can see what we have. You can see we have button to button, input, this. The idea is that we use this to map the actual stuff we want. So if you see things like the stack, we know what we are supposed to do with it. The default prop is direction is column, which we know. The other things like flex, which we have not defined yet. This is an error, it shouldn't be there. So we have other things there, like as you can see here. But it's not perfect, like I said. But this same thing you see here was what was used to create this. So just wanted to show you guys the progress of this. So this is day 7 since I started working on this. So I started early this month. So like this, I think this is the 8th or 9th day, but it's day 7 for me basically. So I probably update you guys tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do a video tomorrow. I should. So I'll update you guys tomorrow. Might not be able to do a video day after. So just to update you guys on the progress and what I've done so far and what you should expect coming soon. So yeah, that is it from me. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you've learned something here, and I'll keep updating you guys as I go and whatever I've done, what you should expect from this, how the progress is, and if I encounter challenges. Obviously there are challenges every single time. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now. Feel free to drop your comments if you have any. If you need me to explain anything, just DM me anywhere, anyhow. Drop in a comment, I'll reply. And then if you want us to talk personally, just feel free. Do any of those things you probably won't.
It's
And
17 hours.
yeah, thank you so much once again. Bye for now.